Mangalam, we've spoken about how, important and significant and fast-growing the logistics industry is. What we haven't talked about is how big the warehousing sector really has become, because gone are the days of the go-downs, right? We're talking state-of-the-art, international standard warehousing in India.
Yeah, you could really shoot a sci-fi movie in one of these warehouses. You can find anything within the click of a button, and multiple robots will go and ensure that the products reach you almost instantaneously, and that's how important warehousing is in the entire supply chain logistics
and thanks
space.
to the e-commerce boom and what happened during the pandemic, and that's really fueled the rise of the industry, and that is why we talk about it here on Mad About Markets.
So let's go down the warehouse. Let's talk about it. India's warehouse market has actually experienced remarkable growth in recent years. In fact, in 2021 itself, it was a little over 1.2 lakh crore rupees, or 1206 billion rupees, all the way up to double and a little more by 2027, almost 2,900 billion rupees. That's nearly 2.9 lakh crore rupees, and that means a compounding of 15.5% over the next 5 years. And that's higher than the underlying growth of the logistics industry itself, and a significant opportunity for businesses and investors in the warehousing sector. And that's how important it is.
And that's why we're talking about it here on Mad About Markets. So let's dive straight in. What are the factors that are really propelling the growth of the warehousing market? First, you have the e-commerce sector, and that has been a major contributor with increasing adoption of online shopping. The demand for efficient storage and distribution centers, that too has soared. Secondly, you have the growth of the manufacturing sector, which is also playing a critical role, because as these activities expand, the need for warehousing space to store raw materials as well as the finished goods, that is also growing. And third, the government's focus on infrastructure development, and that has also created a very conducive environment for the industry. Investments in roads, highways, logistics parks, that has improved connectivity and efficiency overall. And then, of course, finally, there is an increasing demand for cold storage facilities because of the growing need to preserve perishable goods like food, pharmaceuticals, and other temperature-sensitive products.
Yeah, absolutely. Products spend more time being stored at warehouses than they are in transit.
Waiting to be dispatched by people like us who want it immediately. Huh?
And for us, it's definitely faster consumed than anything else. But, it's still at a very nascent stage and has a long, long way to go before tapping into its full potential. We here on Mad About Markets often talk about the per capita opportunity in India, compare it with other global peers as well, and see how far we are when it comes to the opportunity on the way up. For warehousing itself, India's per capita warehousing stock is 0.02 square meters. The next one is China, 0.8, which is still 40 times higher per capita than India. And India and China's population is pretty much similar,
no, we've
right?
We're now the most populous country in the
comparable.
world.
Let's put it that way. The king of warehousing in the world, of course, in terms of per capita, is the US, 4.4 square meters. And then we have Britain as well, a little over 1 square meter per person in terms of per capita warehouse.
That gives you the long road ahead and how much more distance we have to cover.
So let's go across to the experts itself, and they'll tell us what exactly lies in store ahead. We have Rampraveen Swaminathan, who's the MD CEO of Mahindra Logistics, joining in. Sharad, Gohil, MD of IndoSpace Capital Asia, an investor in the warehouse space. And we have Gautam Kapoor, who's the co-founder of Shiprocket as well. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in. Let's go across to Sharad first. Sharad, what does the current environment for warehousing look like? I mean, there was a big bump up in e-commerce post the pandemic, but thereafter it's seen a little bit of a correction. So from all those perspectives, what does the situation look like right now?
One is manufacturing, which is now witnessing a very strong rebound of growth across India, really driven by strong progressive government policies and initiatives such as Make in India, production-linked incentive schemes, and also benefiting from China Plus One. These are all fueling demand growth for manufacturing activity, particularly in electronics, particularly in electronic vehicles and auto manufacturing. E-commerce has really driven the way over the last 4 years. Revenues in e-commerce are growing at 30% plus in India, and is expected to grow sixfold over the next 7 years. India is actually expected to have more online shoppers than the US over the next 1 to 2 years. The third key driver that we're seeing is retail, organized retail. As a sector, it's expected to grow to a $2 trillion market by the end of 2023. And has really seen a strong rebound post-COVID in the last 24 months, with not only tier one markets, but across the country as a whole. And the fourth key driver that we're seeing is third-party logistics, which is a benefactor from e-commerce and retail.
Well, Ram, what about you at Mahindra? How has the warehousing business performed for you in the last year or so? And the kind of fuel that we saw because of the pandemic in the last couple of years, is that sustaining?
I think demand for warehousing-based services is still pretty robust. For us, we've seen I think a 13-14% growth in terms of volume of revenue from the segment. And we are adding capacity. We continue to add capacity.
Ram, you're adding a lot of capacity. So let's talk about the industries that are driving the demand for logistics itself. I mean, it's the third-party logistics which has been the most prolific occupier group, fueled by the increasing need for e-commerce. I mean, you have a lot of these e-commerce players who outsource their logistics supply chain to third-party players, and as a result of which 39% of the overall warehousing space is occupied by them itself. Other things, pharmaceutical, sensitive nature of products, autos, huge components, they require about 30% of the overall warehousing space right now. Retail is around 13%, e-commerce is 7%. And e-commerce took a bit of a dip at 7%. Going forward, it's likely to be about 37% of the overall warehousing space. The other important components, but not very big in terms of drivers, would be your consumer durables, consumer goods, telecom, etc., which would be anywhere between 3 to 5% and are likely to stay around that itself. But the moot point is that third-party logistics, e-commerce, autos and pharma, most important industries for the warehousing space, Ritu.
And they'll continue to drive the growth of this sector. But let's talk transaction volumes as well, because FY22 had achieved record high transaction volumes, and so stakeholders doubted if FY23 will see that momentum sustain, especially because of the login correction in the e-commerce sector. But nonetheless, warehousing transaction volumes have actually matched the record levels. So as of FY23, you have 4.8 million square meters of transactions happening, and it's whatever was a gap left by e-commerce has been filled in by the other sectors like manufacturing.
Almost 5 million volumes in warehousing space itself.
Yeah.
I mean, let's ask Gautam about this. Gautam, how's the warehousing demand holding up with e-commerce, which saw a bit of a correction this year? What have been the key trends?
The overall demand from a consumer per se, I don't see that changing quite a bit. What we've seen for our customers specifically is that the channels where they were selling has increased overall. What that really means is that when a particular brand was more focused on just selling on, say, 4 or 5 top e-commerce channels, be it their own website or selling on the top marketplaces, we have seen a lot of these brands now exploring going more offline. And within offline, then it can be further divided into multiple channels, right? In the general trade or the modern trade markets, or even companies which are quick delivery companies like Blinkit, Zepto, or Instamart, where most of these D2C brands have found market as well in. And not just consumable retail, but also some quick fashion electronic accessory businesses have also found value there, selling through these new channels. So you would find a lot of brands going offline, trying to hold up their sales or increasing their sales through other channels. So warehousing typically is still used, maybe not for B2C businesses, but B2B businesses.
Well, that's interesting. But Sharad, let me come back to you because, the bulk of the warehousing demand as far as IndoSpace is concerned, does it also come from e-commerce or 3PL players, or, are there other trends that are shaping up?
Sure. So IndoSpace has 127 unique tenants. Currently, when we look at our overall demand pie, the bulk of it historically in the last 4 years has been really driven by e-commerce. As we roll forward, approximately half of that is driven by e-commerce demand. In the last 24 months, we've seen a really strong rebound from manufacturing. And the last 12 months in particular, even 80 to 90% of our take-up was from the manufacturing sector. So that's really where the bulk of the significant demand. I think with e-commerce and retail, you also have 3PL providers, the likes of DHL, who are very prominent, our oldest customer across our portfolio when we started the business 15 years ago.
Well, gentlemen, hold your thoughts. We're going to look at the 8 primary markets in India, which held an estimated 38 million square meters, which is about 412 million square feet of warehousing stock at the end of FY23. Now, transaction volumes in tandem with comparatively lower supply in FY23 have brought down the vacancy levels as well to about 12.2% as of last year. The Mumbai market, now that accounted for almost 34% of this entire stock, and then you had, along with NCR and other markets, constituting 52% of the overall levels. Now, vacancy levels in the major markets of Mumbai, NCR, Chennai, etc., as you can see, range between 10 to 16%, the highest in Kolkata, and the least, as you can see, in the NCR region.
Interesting that Kolkata and Hyderabad still have 19 to 20% vacant space out there, but not all warehouses are the same. I mean, they're roughly divided into various categories called grades. So there's an increasing demand for grade A warehousing facility, which is basically better equipped with additional floor load capacity, better planned spaces, safety precautions, as well as adherence to international standards. Grade A warehousing is slowly taking over grade B and grade C, which have limited infra capability. So basically the erstwhile godowns, they're out with them, and grade A is where, people are looking at. That's where the opportunity is, perhaps.
And, that is perhaps where the opportunity is, and that is where, a lot of demand is also coming in as well. So, India is going to create, or will have to create, adequate supply to meet absorption of almost 223 million square feet of grade A warehousing in the next 3 years. That is the size of the opportunity for the warehousing market.
So that's the size of the opportunity. Let's see how much money is required for something like this. I mean, you look at the kind of warehousing space that is needed, right? So let's talk about the investment. So to support this scale of investment, we would require almost $4 billion, USD 3.8 billion, to support the scale of development. And this is as per CREDAI and ANAROC's estimate. This signifies a latent investment opportunity of $2.8 billion in this space itself. So $1 billion has been invested, 2.8 still remaining. That's the kind of money that one needs for the warehousing market.
Like we always say, right? Investors smell the opportunity that's coming up in the space. In 2022, for instance, warehousing continued to emerge as the most sought after sector for investment, despite other sectors experiencing a bit of a slowdown. So, private equity investors collectively invested about $1.9 billion in 2022, with an average investment of about $272 million. You saw 7 deals happening then. In the first quarter of 2023, you saw 2 deals, an increasing number of amount, as you can see, being invested by a lot of people. And these are both global as well as international investors. Let's also look at some of the big deals that have happened in this space. And in just the last few years, you had deals ranging between $1,000 million to maybe $55 million. And these are the biggest ones that have happened in the last couple of years. Bain investing in Lodha. And then, of course, you had IndoSpace as well. We've been talking to them here. And Blackstone making some significant deals.
So all the big guys, let's see what happens for the players right now who are in the listed space as well. Rampraveen, what will be the key demand drivers for the warehousing growth going forward? I mean, e-commerce demand is coming back meaningfully. There is a lot of investment which is required. What do you think is the order for the demand side?
I think there could be 2, 3. The first one, I think, is obviously densification or deepening of demand, and therefore more demand and growth in tier 2, tier 3 cities coming up, right? And that expansion is going to continue to happen. Very underserved market still. The second one is obviously from end market growth. We'd expect e-commerce to come back in the next 2 or 3 quarters. There's a correction. India is still a very underserved market from a digital or online demand channel perspective, and so that should be a correction which should happen in the coming few quarters. And then we obviously continue to expect that demand in other segments will grow from a fulfillment perspective. The third big driver actually will be inbound manufacturing and more Make in India programs. So I think as Make in India accelerates, or the local manufacturing accelerates, we'll actually see far greater, activity around inbound manufacturing supply chains, where which will also drive demand for warehousing.
Well, manufacturing, 3PL, all of it put together is, apart from e-commerce, the big driver. But Gautam, interestingly, Shiprocket has been working with ONDC to, set up this warehousing as a service business. Tell us what's happening on that front. That's a new trend coming up.
When you go out and you buy from an e-commerce company or an e-commerce platform, you're expecting the order to come to you as fast as possible. Now, what at least has happened in the last 2 years is that demand from the tier 3 and tier 4 has also increased. That means that the products have to be now even closer to the customers. It's not earlier it was only one warehouse servicing the entire country. Then it became 4 regions. Now we're talking about having the inventory closer, even more closer to the customer. And then the same thing goes for any e-commerce platform and ONDC in equal, where we are saying that can the inventory, a live inventory, be available for ONDC to be closer to the customer, because when a customer comes on to buying from ONDC, can they get a similar experience of getting the shipment delivered to them in a day or 2 days, or maybe 3 days in some cases, but maximum customers getting delivery in 2 days? Is that what we're trying to achieve from that for customers buying from ONDC as well?
All right, Gautam, let's take a short break on that note. In fact, on the other side, we discuss the yays and the mays, the opportunities and problems of the warehousing industry.
And as always, we're going to ask the bigger question. And what is the bigger question? That is coming up on your wall right now. What will it take to unlock the next growth leg for India's warehousing market? We'll discuss that with our guests on the other side of this break.